Keen for Avatar but don't have a PC quite up to snuff? Well, this video is sponsored. GeForce Now, powered by CloudGG, has got you covered. They just launched their all-new Ultra tier, giving you access to RTX 3080 servers, 4K 60fps streaming, support for ultra-wide monitors, and much more. It coincides with Game Pass arriving on GeForce Now, and you can play stuff like Forza Motorsports on there without needing an Xbox or a high-end PC. Click the link below to try it for free, or stick around to the end of the video to learn more.
Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Man, this game kinda surprised me. So I did a hands-on preview of this a couple months ago. I left that preview feeling optimistic, but low-key had a few concerns. Namely, the performance was shaky at times, the combat and stealth sandbox felt quite limited, and I had this gut feeling that this was going to be a very cut-and-dry, liberate Pandora from the humans type deal. Simply a mechanism to send you clearing outpost upon outpost. I said that this felt like a known quantity, and yeah, I was genuinely concerned that all those reservations would rear its ugly head in the full release. However, I am pleased to tell you that actually, I really liked this. Hell, I loved it. So I gotta preface this by saying that the last open world Ubisoft game I played was Assassin's Creed Origins, and the last Far Cry game I played was Far Cry 3. I totally get that the open world fatigue. These games tend to be quite formulaic after all, but I've had quite a break from that, so I was going into Avatar feeling fresh, fully prepared to embrace that kind of experience. I am also a big Avatar fan, especially the first film. The story was pretty good, but nothing extraordinary. What was groundbreaking though was the visuals and world building, which went a long way in making Pandora feel like a real place. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora is much the same. It's got an okay story, an intriguing tale of divided Na'vi clans and how they deal with the return of humanity, running alongside the struggles of the young main cast who feel lost about their identity. It loses its grip on the plot a bit toward the end, but what it lacks in narrative payoff, it more than makes up for with its drop-dead gorgeous realization of Pandora. The Western Frontier is a staggeringly detailed, gorgeous environment, perhaps the best natural environment I've ever seen in a video game. Its sights, sounds, and clever use of haptic feedback make you feel truly grounded in this world, offering a deeply immersive escape that few games offer. But is there more to this game than just being really, really ridiculously good looking? Yes. I was surprised to find out how much I enjoyed the combat in this game. Smooth traversal mechanics, impactful sound design, and a pretty decent arsenal of tools combined to build a challenging yet rewarding combat framework. Quest design and side activities aren't bad either, asking you to rely more on your senses and navigational abilities rather than piling your map with objective markers. It all folds neatly into the game's elegant hunting and gathering systems, its resources giving Pandora's diverse biomes meaning, encouraging you to learn the ways of the land and seek quality over quantity. This harmonious relationship with the natural world is key to capturing that Na'vi fantasy, and that's really what this game is all about. Ubisoft Massive have done a splendid job here in ensuring all its systems service that vision while still being fun to engage with. It's not perfect. I suspect many will still see this as just standard open world Ubisoft game number 37, but what it does undeniably deliver on, for me, is capturing that Na'vi fantasy and making this feel like a real living, breathing world, much the same way that the films did. This is a good game, but if you're an Avatar fan like me, it's an excellent one, as you're going to really appreciate everything this stunning slice of Pandora has to offer.
We are not warriors, but war has come. We may not remember the words, but we can still sing the songs of our people.
So the setup for this story is that you're one member of a group of Na'vi children that have been raised and trained by the humans known as the RDA. You've been taught their language, how to handle their weaponry, offered food and shelter. Eventually this comes to an end though, as we now converge with the timeline of the films, where Jake Sully's actions to liberate Pandora have caused all RDA to evacuate the planet. In an attempt to save the students from execution, your teacher secretly stows you all away in cryosleep, waking up some 10 years later with the RDA's return. It's here you'll enter the character creator. Nothing too crazy, you can pick your body type, face, voice, body paint, and hair. You'll unlock more options along your journey, and you can switch these things at changing rooms in settlements. You soon discover that you're the last remaining members of an extinct clan known as the Sarentu, storytellers that once brought the clans of the Western Frontier together. Now, I thought this was going to be a pretty cut and dry revenge story, and in some ways it is. I mean, you go out to each of the clans, you deal with their problems, they rally behind you, you fight back. But to say that's all it is would be reductive, because alongside this A plot, there are some compelling internal conflicts and mysteries running in parallel. I mean, first of all, you're still just kids, or teenagers specifically. Didn't know this going into the game, to be honest, but it leads to a lot of interesting story implications that really set this apart from the story of, say, Jake Sully, who's a cocky, hardened Marine with nothing to lose. To be thrown into a rebellion at such a young age, responsible for the lives of so many, and to carry on the legacy of their clan, that's a very heavy burden, especially for kids who have had their innocent minds warped to be frightened of their own world. There's a narrative through line regarding identity. How do these half-caste kids fit into this world given they're Na'vi by blood but know nothing of their culture? These are captivating questions, and it's quite fascinating to see how each of these characters grapple with them in their own way, either confronting their circumstances or being consumed by it. The individual stories of the Na'vi clans were equally engaging. You witness firsthand the problems caused by the RDA, obviously pushing that Avatar theme of colonialism and humanity's exploitation of the natural world, but it's mostly how these clan leaders respond to this issue that I found most interesting. Each have such distinct agendas, all boasting excellent performances from their respective voice actors, giving them such presence and gravitas. Safe to say, whenever the story was directly dealing with the Na'vi clans, I was all in on this, fully switched on, a real highlight for me personally.
Get your filthy blue hands!
I did not like her tone. Warn Sasul, no more will suffer at their hand.
The human characters, though, are, they're a mixed bag, ranging from okay to insufferable. I found most of them written a little too quippy, never taking events seriously enough despite the very lives of the Na'vi around them at stake. The worst offender has got to be the main villain of the game. Meet John Mercer. That bland name perfectly reflects his character. He's a real surface-level bad guy, and to be honest, his motivations were kind of unclear for most of the game, really. Like, it's kind of revenge, but also corporate greed. Yes, we're doing that plotline for the third time. He's real up in your face at the beginning of the game. It pretty quickly establishes a vendetta between you and him, and I thought to myself, oh, this is kind of like Far Cry. I got a bit excited because the Far Cry series really is known for its villains, where that relationship between you two drives the plot. A traditional arch-nemesis type deal. You just want to come out on top by any means necessary. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, but after that brief intro, John Mercer just kinda disappears until basically the final act of the game. Honestly, I was so engrossed in the story of the Na'vi clans and their beef with humans in general that I actually forgot there was even a villain behind it all. And I think the writers did too, because there's a point in the story where you've resolved a bunch of these mysteries and plot lines, and it isn't quite sure where to go from there, so that's when suddenly the main villain just reappears and is like, hey, I'm still here. No word of a lie, you interact with this man like twice throughout the entire story, which I found quite perplexing given how much personal stake was established at the start. He's completely absent, with zero charisma or wit when he does appear. Bro thinks he's him, but he's not even close. As a result, I think the story unfortunately falls off a bit in the final act. It sends you on this wild goose chase to like re-establish him as a villain, but ultimately it just isn't enough time for the whole arc to stick the landing. Feels like a case of just one too many characters, one too many plot threads, clumsily tacked on to ensure one final battle between the Na'vi and the humans. Conclusion aside though, I did overall enjoy the campaign. The writers were able to very effectively weave together the stories of the Western Frontier's clans, such that it all links together organically. The internal struggles of you and your clan, the way these mysteries unfold one after the other, I was hooked throughout. But we haven't yet spoken about the game's true main character, the shining star, the real reason I could not wait to boot up this game each day, and that's the world of Pandora. first time I stepped out into Pandora, my jaw hit the floor. Absolutely gobsmacked by the immense detail and visual splendor of this world. I was actually not prepared for how good this game looks. I think my preview build must have been on lower settings or something. So to say I was impressed here is an understatement. I do not say this lightly. This is undeniably one of the most stunning natural environments ever created in a video game. Everywhere you go, the foliage is remarkably dense. From the trees climbing high to the moss caked over its roots, you can see everything, and it all holds up under scrutiny. Ubisoft has spared no expense in this regard. This alien world is packed with so much variety and color to behold at all times of day, especially under the sunset glow, but nightfall is when it truly comes alive, lit up by the vibrant bioluminescence of its flora. There are 3 regions to explore, each with multiple different biomes within them, but also their own unique gameplay implications. The Kinglore Forest, for example, is almost so dense that it limits your visibility, but really allows you to take advantage of verticality. The Upper Plains region is an expansive grassland, leaving you open, but its harsh winds create wind tunnels for faster flight. The Clouded Forest is an eerie swampland where fungus flourishes, so you'll need to skin your hunts quickly before they're reclaimed by the land. Another neat interaction, when it's about to rain, you can literally see the volumetric storm clouds rolling in. That's cool, but you do not want to be in the air when the lightning starts. So what do? Well, you can fly up through the clouds, pop out the other side unscathed, and soar above it all, basking in the safety of the sun's rays. Such an awesome feeling. One of my favorite things to do in this game. Performance is good too. We tested this game on 3 PCs at their recommended settings. All of these are running DLSS on performance mode, one with an RTX 4090 and an AMD 5950X, and as you can see, it's running over 60 FPS at 4K on ultra settings. Another PC was an RTX 2080 Ti and an AMD 3700X, and this one's running at 1440p, running 50 to 60 FPS at medium settings. And then there's my machine with an RTX 3090 Ti and an i7. As you can see, it's pretty rock solid across the board, maintaining well above 60 FPS at all times. Be sure to check the spec requirements though, because this is quite an intensive game. To run ultra settings at 60 FPS, for example, you'll need at least an RTX 4080. My rig at 1440p could only run this game on high, but it still looks fantastic. You might notice some stuttering in my gameplay. I had an issue every now and then where this would start to happen, and I'd need to change my settings to borderless windowed, then back to full screen to resolve it. Could be an issue specific to my PC. Your results may vary. Unsure about the PS5 performance as well, because I wasn't able to test on there. But otherwise, in my experience, performance was great. Encountered minimal bugs, no crashes. Again, I was concerned by some of the wild frame drops in the preview build. Thankfully, that appears to be resolved here. But it isn't just the visuals and dynamic weather that give this game such life. It's the soundscape. It's clear a lot of work has gone into the sound design. No matter where you go, if you just stop and listen for a moment, you'll be able to hear everything that surrounds you. From the birds in the canopy to the creaking of the trees, the river flowing nearby, the insects, hell, every plant has its own sound.
Is that looks like a solid dude.
The lost cloud?
Look at the mark.
You can identify nearby RDA activity not through a ping on your map, but through the foreign sound of distant gunshots cutting through Pandora's noise, allowing you to pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. It doesn't end there though, because to ground you even more in this world is the haptic feedback. Now, I've been a little bit disappointed as of late with the amount of games on both PC and PS5 that barely do anything with haptics. I think it's kinda undervalued how much it contributes to game feel. Well, it feels bad, man, if you can't play Avatar with a PS5 controller, because I really recommend that you do. There is straight up no other game that takes advantage of it as much as this game does. I mean, you can feel every footstep making impact with with the dirt beneath you, splashing the water, the nearby roaring of a fire, the wind beneath your Ikran's wings, the breathing of these gargantuan mammals that one of the Na'vi tribe live alongside. Literally everything. All these elements combine to create a sensory symphony, an audio-visual feast that makes you feel completely immersed in this world in a way that very few games offer. Ubisoft Massive have outdone themselves here when it comes to realizing the world of Pandora. Playing this game in the dark with a good pair of headphones, taking in this world's beauty, listening to its music, for an Avatar fan like myself, it really is a magical experience. Now, this isn't just a glorified tech demo. There are gameplay reasons for exploring Pandora. Common complaint I hear about typical Ubisoft games is that the world is massive, there's a lot of stuff in it, you can see the map markers everywhere, but none of it is meaningful. A big reason games like Elden Ring, Tears of the Kingdom, and Baldur's Gate 3 have seen so much success lately is because they're kind of the inverse of that. Still huge worlds, but with minimal guides, led entirely by your own curiosity, and rewarded handsomely for it. I don't think Avatar engenders that same feeling of discovery, but I don't think it falls into the traditional Ubisoft camp either. It finds a good middle ground. You may notice the heads-up display here is quite minimal. The only way to see the objective marker or tracked gatherables is through your Na'vi vision, and that's if you've got the guided mode on. There is an option to switch to exploration mode, which removes tracked objective markers entirely and asks you to rely on the limited info provided by the quest. Like, for example, the guy you're looking for is east of Home Tree on the north bank of the Crimson Lake or something. Side quests also won't appear on your map. The only way to find them is to talk to Na'vi in the settlements, and even when you've collected a bunch, only the tracked one will show up. Same thing with side activities and other discoverables. They're only indicated by this soft sort of lens flare effect, and using your Na'vi vision will allow you to see them more clearly. Basically, this game's never getting up in my face with more stuff to do everywhere I go, bombarding me with markers. It's just gently guiding me to things that might be of interest, which went a long way in making me feel less overwhelmed in an otherwise overwhelming environment. Those side quests I mentioned aren't just throwaway fluff to pad out this world either. They're all fully voice acted, each with an actual story to tell. They're nothing amazing, but I did appreciate the effort that went into giving these some proper context. It made me care just a little bit more about the tasks I've been given. One factor to that enjoyment is that whenever I got a quest to cook or craft something, well, those felt quite fun and involved, just by virtue of how these systems work. Now, understandably, you might roll your eyes to the thought of gathering materials ad nauseum to increase your character's power, etc. But you see, Avatar is all about quality, not quantity. No recipe or craft ever requires more than one of a specific material. This holds true all the way until the end. By that I mean, you'll never need 7 hides and 5 moss to make a chess piece, just one of each, with the quality of the materials determining the stats. Quality is not completely random either. You've got a hunter's guide. It tells you in detail where and how to harvest the highest quality of these resources. From there, it's just a matter of aligning the right conditions through resting at a campfire, and then searching for that location and carefully harvesting them with the assistance of haptics. When it comes to hunting, there's the added element of how clean your kill is, downing them with as few arrows as possible by exploiting weak spots. Inventory space is intentionally limited too, I suspect to discourage you from hunting an entire species to extinction so you can stock up. Instead, it's about using only exactly what you need in that moment. There's also no currency. You simply receive items from other Na'vi by accruing reputation for your good deeds or donating items to the community. This idea of giving instead of trading, only taking from the land what's necessary, it's all in service of delivering on that Na'vi fantasy. Their relationship with Pandora is a symbiotic one, and Ubisoft Massive have really committed to that vision here across every facet of the game. I was really impressed by the way they've depicted Na'vi culture here, and translated that to such an enjoyable gameplay loop. finally, let's talk about what surprised me the most, the combat. This is the main component I criticized in my hands-on preview, my concern being that the sandbox here was too limited. Not enough stealth options and didn't play enough into the advantages of being Na'vi. I honestly thought I'd grow tired of it pretty early on, given what I'd seen, but you know what? I stand corrected. I really enjoyed the combat here. It starts with the movement. To put it simply, traversal in this game feels fantastic. The default 75 FOV made sprinting seem a little slow, but turning that up to 90 felt about right to me. You can slide, which is something common in modern first-person games, but it feels notably smooth here, retaining your full control and momentum, especially downhill. Alongside this, there's a jump that can be charged to leap higher, as well as an air dash, ground dash, and clamber. There's mushrooms and leaves that'll launch you high, vines and pulleys you can climb, your very own Ikran, of course, that you can shoot from. More than enough traversal mechanics here to take advantage of, allowing you to get anywhere you please. It all feels super fluid and agile, just how a Na'vi should be. Then there's the actual feel of combat itself. Weapon feedback feels excellent. The haptics and sound design combine to give every pull or release of the trigger such impact. Trained by the RDA, you know how to handle a few guns, and on the Na'vi side, you've got various bows for different situations, a sling for crowd control, and a spear thrower, which is basically a Na'vi RPG. While I said in the preview that I felt this may not be enough, on the contrary, I think that it is.
There's a lot to manage there, and I can imagine the addition of even more weaponry or even proper melee combat would probably overcomplicate things.
That's not to say there's no melee options though. One of the most satisfying things to do in this game is punt RDA grunts across Pandora with a swift drop kick. When it comes to stealth, you'll do the expected thing of silently headshotting enemies, and instead of lobbing rocks to distract them, you can use a specific sling ammo that fulfills the same role. You've also got a hacking tool known as Sid. I felt like a spy using this. This is mostly used for puzzles, but you can also hack amp suits, which will shut them down, allowing you to run up and rip out the pilot.
What you doing?
Combat is also quite challenging. There are difficulty options here. I had enemies set to medium, and let me tell you, even on that setting, these enemies are no slouch. They're a good shot and hit like a truck. Even grunts can easily shut you down in a couple bursts. It feels fair though. These aren't bullet sponges. The time to kill on both sides is very low. I suspect it's all balanced around how strong the food buffs and weapon perks are. There's also a range of enemy types here between Pandora's various hostile fauna and the RDA's amp suit variants. From ones that rain artillery upon you to others equipped with flamethrowers. It's not a huge amount of variety, and they can be difficult to pass sometimes in the heat of combat, but to be honest, it didn't bother me that much because these encounters are actually paced quite sparingly throughout the campaign, aside from the final act. I think aerial combat is perhaps the weakest component here. It can feel a little clumsy to control your Ikran while shooting, but these situations don't occur too often.
But yeah, that tight difficulty tuning was kind of key to my enjoyment. It actually encourages you to employ stealth to pick off as many as you can first. In combat, you'll actively hot swap between weapons for their intended uses and target those enemy weak spots. You may run out of ammo and need to craft them on the fly, as well as eat food to keep your buffs rolling, all while you can hear and feel the thudding of multiple amp suits closing in on your position. It's a simple yet effective combat framework that I found quite engaging, rewarding considered use of your resources, positioning, and accuracy.
So admittedly, this review has been pretty glowing. There's not too much to critique here, except one thing, of course. This non-live service, full-price game with multiple DLCs on the way also has a cash shop. There's packs of premium currency you can buy. They're specifically tailored to give you just not enough for the bigger cosmetic bundles. There's skins for your gear, your character, your Ikran, your weapons. I'm falling asleep as I describe this to you. Point is, it's all dumb, it's all expensive. I mean, a single body paint costs like $8 Australian for God's sake. This is a first-person game, and I suspect that most people will play this single player. Paid cosmetics are stupid in a game like this. I cannot fathom why this exists. Just
just put all this stuff in the game, Ubisoft. How many times do we need to teach you this lesson? At the very least, I'm glad they're not really monetizing progression here like some of the Assassin's Creed entries. There is some gear here hidden in the bundles, but they're like not good at all. That could change though. Lord knows Ubisoft's pulled that before. I mean, there were definitely points in the story where I was under the recommended gear score, but I did the quest anyway and had no problems. That gear score is dictated by your gear, but if I ever felt compelled to increase it, all I had to do was set my mind to crafting a few new pieces or doing a couple side quests. Basically, yeah, you're not going to be encouraged to spend money just to keep up with the campaign, even if they did add that stuff. The game provides you with more than enough options to help increase your power. Beyond that, despite my lack of criticisms, the game is by no means perfect. I think the skill tree is kinda lame, and most of these upgrades could have just been placed onto gear to make them feel even more meaningful. I think there aren't enough events that occur in the world. It's basically just the RDA terrorizing the wildlife, or you can go up and remove trackers from them. I don't like that the side quests are mostly confined to the settlements. I wish there were more to discover for yourself in the far reaches of Pandora.
But even with these gripes in mind, even though the story struggles to stick the landing, even though its combat and side quests may be nothing extraordinary, I thoroughly enjoyed my 30 hours with this game because of how effectively it delivers on that Na'vi fantasy. As I said in the intro, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is a game really made for Avatar fans. I think it's a decent game regardless, don't get me wrong, but you'll have an enhanced appreciation for it if you're into the films. You will bond with an Ikran, tame a dire horse, discover all manner of strange new beasts. You'll push back the RDA with the speed and athleticism of a Na'vi, using the weapons and food you've crafted from the land's bounty. And all this exists within a masterfully crafted slice of Pandora whose world-class visuals and sound design will completely transport you. It releases today on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC, and supports 2-player co-op if you want to bring a friend along with you. Bottom line, if what you've seen here looks interesting, if you're hankering for an open world game that'll immerse you, thrill you, and potentially move you, I recommend Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. But if you're an Avatar fan like me, I strongly recommend it.
So, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is actually pretty good. I know we all had our doubts, so it's nice to see Ubisoft land this one. Maybe you want to check it out for yourself but don't have a current-gen console, and your PC is a little long in the tooth. Don't worry though, you don't need to fork out hundreds of dollars for a new console or thousands of dollars for a new PC. Instead, you can be playing the new Avatar game in minutes on an RTX 3080, enabling up to 4K resolution, 60 FPS, and support for ultra-wide monitors. It's all thanks to this video's sponsor, GeForce Now, powered by CloudGG. GeForce Now is a powerful gaming platform that lets you play hundreds of games through the power and magic of the cloud. Meaning you can play those games on your TV, your old, outdated PC, your tablets, and even your Apple devices. This is possible because GeForce Now does all the graphical processing in the cloud and just beams you an image, similar to something like Netflix. It's been available for a while now and people have loved it, but last month CloudGG made a massive upgrade to their infrastructure, one that really transforms this entire cloud gaming experience. Their new Ultra Tier membership is the first time you'll be able to experience RTX 3080 servers. This means you can get up to 4K 60 FPS or 1440p at 120 FPS. The 120 FPS number is significant because many modern TVs support 120 FPS, meaning you can play Cyberpunk on your TV at that frame rate if you want to, without needing to spend hundreds of dollars on a console or thousands of dollars on a high-end PC. This membership tier is also the first to support ultra-wide resolutions, and as someone who rocks an ultra-wide monitor myself, that is a very worthwhile addition. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is going to be available day one on GeForce Now, powered by CloudGG. That means you can play it on an RTX 3080 PC for just a tiny fraction of the cost of purchasing that hardware outright. That's not all though. Recently, GeForce Now signed a partnership with Xbox, which puts Game Pass games on GeForce Now. That means that 25 new Game Pass games immediately joined the GeForce Now service, including the brand spanking new Forza Motorsport. New games are added to the service all the time. Just recently, it got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Lords of the Fallen, Steam World Build, City Skylines 2, and even the classic Onimusha Warlords. Best of all, you don't need to buy these games twice. These games are pulled from your existing Steam, Epic, or Ubisoft libraries, meaning you can continue to buy games wherever you please, but play them through the power and convenience of GeForce Now. There's a free trial available all the time, allowing you to test this for yourself, and for less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can get a full month of the basic tier membership, giving you the chance to stream games on the fly with ease. If you find yourself loving it and using it often, you may want to check out that Ultra tier, giving you next-gen features like ray tracing, 4K 60 FPS, and ultra-wide. PC gaming is, I think, the best way to go about it, but the cost of entry is often intimidating, and you have to worry about upgrading your hardware and troubleshooting issues, etc. If you want to get into PC gaming without any of the cost or hassle, then GeForce Now is absolutely the way to do it, allowing you to play hundreds of PC games with ease. You can try it for free by clicking the link below. Thanks GeForce Now, powered by CloudGG, for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.